Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked out at the endless black of space through the observation window. Frontier 7 was not much to look at. Just a collection of metal boxes and tunnels, strapped to a giant rock floating in the asteroid belt. But it was home, at least for now. He had been the mining supervisor here for 3 years. The work was hard, and the days were long. But Jake did not mind. Before this, he had been a rescue worker back on Earth. He knew how to stay calm when things went wrong. Out here in deep space, that skill came in handy more often than he liked. The station was busy today. A Dracoth trade vessel had docked 2 days ago, and the whole crew was on edge. The Dracoth were not like other aliens. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, with thick red scales that looked like armor. Their faces were long and sharp, with rows of teeth that could tear through metal. When they breathed, small wisps of smoke came from their nostrils. They looked like the dragons from old Earth stories, and they acted like warriors from those same tales. Most aliens who visited the station were friendly enough. The Zenthari were small and chatty, always trying to trade information. The Kryn were quiet and polite, keeping to themselves. But the Dracoth were different. They were proud and fierce, and they did not trust easily. They came to trade minerals from their home world, a volcanic planet called Ignar Prime. The deals were always fair, but the Dracoth made it clear they were doing humans a favor by being here at all. Jake walked down the main corridor toward the docking bay. He nodded to Lisa Chen, the station medical officer, who was checking supplies near the clinic entrance. "How are our guests doing?" Jake asked. Lisa shrugged. "Same as always. They keep to themselves. Their commander, Vrax, barely says 2 words, unless it is about the trade contracts. His mate Sereth is the same. Cold as ice. They brought their young this time," Jake said. "That is new. 3 hatchlings," Lisa confirmed. "Small ones, too. I saw them yesterday when they came through for the health screening. Cute little things. If you can get past all the scales and teeth. They stayed close to their parents the whole time." Jake smiled. "Even dragon babies need their mom and dad." The alarm went off before Lisa could respond. It was not the emergency alarm, just the alert tone that meant someone needed help. Jake's radio crackled to life. "Morrison, get to docking bay 3. Now." It was Ryan Cooper, the security chief. His voice was tight with worry. Jake ran. Lisa followed close behind. When they burst through the docking bay doors, they found chaos waiting for them. Commander Vrax stood in the center of the bay, his massive form shaking with rage. Smoke poured from his nostrils in thick clouds. His mate Sereth was beside him, her claws extended and her tail whipping back and forth. 6 other Dracoth from their crew surrounded them, all looking ready for a fight. Ryan stood between the angry Dracoth and the rest of the station crew. He had his hands up, trying to calm everyone down. "Commander, please," Ryan said. "We will help you search. Just give us a moment to organize." "You have had enough moments," Vrax roared. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "My hatchlings are missing. They were here 1 hour ago. Now they are gone. Someone on this station has taken them." Jake felt his stomach drop. Missing children were every parent's nightmare, human or alien. He stepped forward slowly, keeping his movements calm and steady. "Commander Vrax," Jake said. "I am Jake Morrison, the mining supervisor. I know every tunnel and room on this station. Let me help you search." Vrax turned his burning eyes toward Jake. For a moment, Jake thought the Dracoth might breathe fire right at him. But then Vrax gave a short nod. "You have 1 hour," Vrax said. "If my hatchlings are not found, I will tear this station apart piece by piece." It was not an empty threat. Jake could see it in the commander's eyes. The Dracoth protected their young above all else. A missing hatchling was not just a problem. It was a declaration of war. The search began immediately. Ryan sent security teams to every section of the station. Lisa checked the medical bay and living quarters. Jake took the industrial areas, the places where most people did not go. He moved through the mining tunnels with his scanner in hand, looking for any sign of the small Drakath. The tunnels were cold and dark, lit only by emergency lights every few meters. His boots clanged on the metal floors as he walked deeper into the maintenance sections. Jake was checking Tunnel 7 when he heard it. A small sound, like a bird chirping. He froze and listened. There it was again. Coming from somewhere ahead, he moved toward the sound, his scanner beeping softly. The tunnel curved to the left, and Jake saw the problem immediately. Part of the ceiling had collapsed, probably from the minor quake they had felt earlier in the week. Nobody had reported it because this section was rarely used. And there, behind a pile of broken metal and rock, he saw 3 small shapes huddled together. The Drakath hatchlings were tiny compared to their parents, no bigger than house cats. Their scales were a lighter red than the adults, almost pink in the dim light. One of them saw Jake and let out a frightened chirp. The other 2 pressed closer together, their eyes wide with fear. "Hey there, little ones," Jake said softly. He got down on his knees and kept his voice gentle. "It is okay. I am here to help." One of the hatchlings had a cut on its leg. Another was shivering, its scales dull instead of shiny. The third, the smallest of the group, looked at Jake with curious eyes but did not move. Jake reached for his radio, then stopped. The tunnel was unstable. He could see cracks in the walls and ceiling. One wrong move, one loud noise, and the whole thing might come down. He could not risk calling for help and causing another collapse. He looked at the hatchlings again and saw the real problem. They were shaking. Not from fear, but from cold. Drakath came from a volcanic world. They needed heat to survive, especially the young ones. This tunnel was far from the heated sections of the station, and the temperature was dropping fast. Jake made a decision. He opened his thermal suit and carefully reached for the closest hatchling. It tried to pull away, but it was too weak to move far. Jake picked it up gently and held it against his chest. The little creature was cold as ice, its scales rough against his skin. "Come on," Jake whispered. "Let me help you." He gathered all 3 hatchlings and pulled them inside his open suit, pressing them against his bare chest. They were scared and confused, their small claws digging into his skin. It hurt. But Jake did not let go. He zipped the suit partway up, wrapped his jacket around them, and held them close. The hatchlings chirped and squirmed for a moment. Then they seemed to realize he was warm. Very slowly, they stopped fighting and pressed closer to him. Seeking his body heat, Jake sat down carefully against the tunnel wall. He would have to wait here until someone found him. Moving through the unstable tunnel with the hatchlings would be too dangerous. For now, all he could do was keep them warm and hope help arrived before the Drakath tore the station apart, looking for their young. He felt the tiny heartbeats against his chest, fast and frightened. Jake started humming an old song his mother used to sing. Something about stars and dreams and coming home. The smallest hatchling made a soft sound, almost like a purr. Above them, in the main station, Commander Vrax was gathering his pack, and they were coming for blood. Jake sat very still in the dark tunnel, feeling 3 small lives pressed against his chest. The hatchlings had stopped shaking so much, but they were still too cold. Their scales felt like frozen metal against his skin, and every breath they took seemed weaker than the last. He knew about Drakath biology from the safety briefings. They were cold-blooded, like the reptiles back on Earth. Without external heat, they could not regulate their body temperature. For adults, it was uncomfortable. For hatchlings, it was deadly. Jake shifted carefully, trying to give them more of his warmth without crushing them. The smallest one, tucked right under his chin, made a soft cooing sound. Its little claws were still digging into his chest, and he could feel blood trickling down his ribs. But the pain did not matter. These were babies, scared and hurt and cold. He had to keep them alive. The tunnel groaned around him. Dust fell from the cracks in the ceiling. Jake held his breath, but nothing collapsed. Not yet. He looked at his radio on his belt. He could try to call for help, but the sound might destabilize the tunnel even more. And even if he whispered, there was no guarantee anyone would hear him through all the metal and rock. Better to wait. Someone would track his suit beacon eventually. The problem was time. How long could he keep 3 hatchlings warm with just his body heat? An hour? 2? And how long before their parents gave up searching and decided the station crew had killed them? Jake closed his eyes and tried to think calm thoughts. That was what his old training instructor had taught him. In a crisis, your mind could be your worst enemy or your best tool. Panic helped no one. One of the hatchlings shifted position, pressing its cold nose against Jake's collarbone. It was seeking the warmest spot, acting on pure instinct. Jake opened his jacket wider and adjusted the hatchlings so each one had contact with his skin. They settled against him like 3 small, scaly heating pads, desperate for warmth. Meanwhile, in the main docking bay, Commander Vrax was losing patience. Ryan tried again to explain. Commander, we have teams searching every section. If your hatchlings are on this station, we will find them. Your words mean nothing, Vrax growled. Smoke poured from his mouth in thick clouds. You say you will search, but my young are still missing. You delay because you are hiding something. Sereth stepped forward, her eyes blazing with fury. Human words are empty. You speak of peace and cooperation. But when our hatchlings vanish, you offer only excuses. Lisa pushed through the crowd, carrying a data pad. Commander, I have been studying your species' biology. Your hatchlings need warmth to survive. If they wandered into one of the colder sections of the station, they might be too weak to call for help. Vrax turned his massive head toward her. You think we do not know this? Every moment my young are missing is a moment closer to their death. And if they die, this station dies with them. More Dracoth had arrived from their ship. The docking bay was now filled with 12 towering warriors, all breathing smoke and showing their teeth. Other aliens on the station were fleeing, grabbing their belongings and heading for their ships. Everyone knew what a Dracoth pack could do when they were angry. Ryan touched his radio. All teams, report status. Anyone found anything? The responses came back negative. No sign of the hatchlings anywhere. Lisa pulled Ryan aside. I tracked Jake's beacon. He is in Maintenance Tunnel 7, in the old mining section. But he is not responding to calls. Why would he go there? Ryan asked. I do not know. But that area had some structural damage from last week's tremor. It was flagged for repair but not marked as dangerous. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. Get a rescue team together. Now. But Commander Vrax had heard them talking. He turned, his massive tail sweeping across the floor. Where is this tunnel? Take me there now, Commander. The tunnel might be unstable, Ryan said. Let my team go first. No. Vrax's voice left no room for argument. You have wasted enough time. I go now, or I tear through this station until I find my young. There was no point arguing with a Dracoth warrior who thought his children were in danger. Ryan nodded and led the way, with Vrax and 4 of his pack warriors following close behind. Lisa grabbed her medical kit and ran after them. In the tunnel, Jake was starting to feel the cold himself. He had given the hatchlings all his heat, and now his own body temperature was dropping. His fingers were numb, and his legs felt heavy, but the hatchlings were warmer. He could feel it. Their scales were not as icy, and their breathing was steadier. The smallest one had stopped shivering completely. It was curled up under Jake's chin, making little rumbling sounds that reminded him of a cat purring. Every so often, it would nuzzle against his neck, as if checking to make sure he was still there. I am not going anywhere, little one, Jake whispered. His voice was hoarse. I have got you. The other 2 hatchlings were pressed against his chest, sharing his warmth. One of them, the one with the cut leg, had its tail wrapped around Jake's wrist. It was like the little creature was holding his hand. Jake started humming again, the same tune from before. It was an old lullaby about sailing ships and distant shores. His mother had sung it to him when he was young and scared of the dark. Now he sang it to 3 baby dragons who were scared of the cold. The hatchlings seemed to like it. They settled deeper against him, their tiny heartbeats slowing to a more normal rhythm. Jake felt his own heartbeat slowing too, but he knew that was not a good sign. He was getting too cold. The hatchlings were taking his heat faster than his body could make it. He tried to stay awake, but his eyelids were so heavy. The tunnel was spinning a little. Or maybe that was just his vision blurring. Jake blinked hard, trying to focus. He had to stay conscious. If he passed out, he might roll over and hurt the hatchlings. He had to protect them. That was all that mattered now. Footsteps echoed in the distance. Jake tried to call out, but his throat was too tight. He could not get enough air. The tunnel felt like it was closing in, the walls pressing closer. Or maybe that was just his oxygen running low. The smallest hatchling chirped softly. A sound of contentment. It trusted him completely. This tiny creature that should have been afraid. Jake smiled despite the cold and the pain and the exhaustion. At least the hatchlings were safe. At least he had done that much right. The footsteps grew louder. Someone was coming. Jake tried to stay awake to see who it was, but the darkness was pulling at him. His last thought before he lost consciousness was that he hoped whoever found them would be gentle with the little ones. They had been through enough already. The tunnel groaned one more time. A piece of ceiling crashed down somewhere behind him, but Jake did not hear it. He was already gone, slumped against the wall with 3 small Dracoth hatchlings sleeping peacefully against his chest, wrapped in his jacket and warmed by his fading body heat. Commander Vrax and his warriors were getting closer. They could smell their young somewhere in the twisting tunnels ahead, and they could smell blood. Human blood. The commander's rage burned hotter than the volcanic vents of his home world. If the human had harmed even one scale on his hatchlings, there would be no mercy. The blood debt would be paid, and this station would become a tomb. Commander Vrax moved through the station corridors like a force of nature. His massive feet shook the metal floors with each step. Behind him, his 4 warriors matched his pace, their tails sweeping dangerously close to anyone foolish enough to get in their way. Ryan ran ahead, trying to guide them to Maintenance Tunnel 7 without letting them destroy everything in their path. Lisa was right behind him, her medical kit bouncing against her hip. She had never seen Dracoth this angry before. Their scales were glowing slightly, heated from within by their rage. "Commander, please slow down," Ryan called back. "The tunnel ahead is unstable. If we move too fast, we could cause another collapse." Vrax did not slow down. "My hatchlings are dying while you talk. Move faster, or get out of my way." They reached the entrance to the maintenance section. The door was sealed with a warning sign about structural damage. Ryan punched in his security code, and the door slid open with a groan. The tunnel beyond was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered every few meters, casting strange shadows on the walls. Vrax pushed past Ryan and stepped inside, his nostrils flaring as he searched for his young. "I smell them," he said. His voice was tight with emotion. "They are close." Sereth had caught up with them, along with the rest of the Dracoth pack. 12 warriors now filled the tunnel entrance, all of them breathing smoke and fire. The temperature in the corridor jumped 20 degrees from their body heat alone. "Let me through," Sereth demanded. She was smaller than Vrax, but no less dangerous. Her claws left marks in the metal floor as she walked. "Those are my babies. If they are hurt, if they are dead, I will burn this place to ashes." Lisa tried to reason with her. "Ma'am, please. We are doing everything we can." "You do nothing," Sereth hissed. "You humans speak soft words but have hard hearts. You saw our young and thought them weak. You thought you could take them, could study them, or sell them to your scientists. But you were wrong. We are Dracoth. We protect our own, and we avenge our blood." The words hit Lisa like a physical blow. She had never thought of humans that way, as cold and cruel. But she could see how it might look from the outside. Humans were new to the galactic community. Many species did not trust them yet. And now, with 3 hatchlings missing, all the old fears and suspicions were rising to the surface. Ryan moved deeper into the tunnel, following his scanner. Jake's beacon was close, just around the next corner. But there was something wrong. The beacon had not moved in over an hour, and Jake was not responding to any calls. "Morrison," Ryan said into his radio. "Jake, can you hear me? If you can hear me, make any sound. We are coming to get you." Silence. Vrax pushed past Ryan and rounded the corner. Then he stopped so suddenly that the warrior behind him nearly crashed into his back. There, slumped against the wall, surrounded by broken rock and metal, was a human. Jake was unconscious, his skin pale, and his lips blue. His thermal suit was open, and his chest was covered in blood from dozens of small cuts. And pressed against that bloody chest, wrapped in a torn jacket and held in place by Jake's limp arms, were 3 small Dracith hatchlings. They were sleeping peacefully. The smallest one was tucked under Jake's chin, its tail curled around his throat. The other 2 were pressed against his ribs, their scales rising and falling with each breath. They were warm, they were safe, they were alive. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The Dracith warriors stood frozen, staring at the scene before them. Sereth made a sound. Something between a sob and a roar. She rushed forward and dropped to her knees beside Jake. Her claws, which had been extended to tear and kill, retracted slowly. She reached out with shaking hands toward the smallest hatchling. "Ember," she whispered. It was the first time Lisa had heard a Dracith speak softly. "My little Ember." The hatchling stirred at its mother's voice but did not wake. It pressed closer to Jake's throat, making a small sound of contentment. Vrax knelt on Jake's other side. His eyes, which had been burning with rage just moments ago, were now wet with something that looked like tears. He touched the other 2 hatchlings gently, checking them for injuries. "They are warm," he said, his voice rough. "They should be dead in this cold. But they are warm." Lisa pushed forward and checked Jake's vital signs. His pulse was weak, and his breathing was shallow. But he was alive. He used his own body heat to keep them warm. He has been here for hours, giving them everything he had. She looked at Jake's chest, at the cuts from the hatchling's claws. They had dug into his skin, holding on while he held them. And he had let them, had protected them despite the pain. Ryan examined the tunnel. This whole section could have come down at any moment. He must have known that. But he stayed. He stayed with them. One of the Dracith warriors stepped forward. He was old, his scales scarred from many battles. He looked at Jake for a long time, then spoke in the Dracith language. The words were slow and heavy with meaning. Vrax nodded. He placed one massive hand on Jake's shoulder, careful not to disturb the sleeping hatchlings. Then he spoke, first in his own language and then in the common tongue so the humans could understand. "This human has done what we thought impossible. He found our young when we could not. He protected them when they were in danger. He gave his own warmth, his own life, to keep them safe. By the old laws of our people, he has earned a place in our pack. He has earned our honor." Vrax looked at his warriors. "The blood debt is no more. In its place, we now have the life debt. This human saved our bloodline. We owe him everything." The warriors all bowed their heads. It was a gesture of deep respect, something Dracith only gave to their own leaders or to heroes who had saved entire clans. Lisa carefully began working to separate the hatchlings from Jake. They did not want to let go. The smallest one, Ember, chirped in protest when Sereth tried to pick it up. It clung tighter to Jake's neck, its tiny claws finding new holds in his skin. "Shh, little one," Sereth murmured. She gently pried her daughter loose and held her close. "The warm one needs help now. You are safe. He saved you." The other 2 hatchlings were taken by their father and one of the warriors. They chirped and reached back toward Jake, confused about why they were being separated from the warm human who had protected them. Lisa and Ryan lifted Jake carefully. He was ice cold, hypothermic from giving away all his heat. They wrapped him in thermal blankets and started carrying him back toward the medical bay. Vrax walked beside them, his eyes never leaving Jake's face. Will he live? I do not know, Lisa said honestly. He has been in the cold too long. His body temperature is dangerously low. The next few hours will be critical. He must live, Vrax said. It was not a threat, but a plea. He saved my children. He must live to see them grow. That is how it works. That is how it must be. They reached the medical bay, and Lisa went to work immediately. She hooked Jake up to warming blankets and IV fluids. She treated his cuts and monitored his vitals. Ryan stood guard at the door, keeping the curious crowd at bay. The Dracoth pack gathered outside the medical bay. All 12 warriors stood watch, refusing to leave. They would stay until they knew whether the human who had saved their young would survive the night. Lisa had not slept in 30 hours. She sat beside Jake's bed in the medical bay, watching the monitors that tracked his vital signs. The numbers were better than they had been when they first brought him in, but he was not out of danger yet. His body temperature had been so low that she had worried about permanent damage. Hypothermia did terrible things to the human body, shutting down organs one by one until there was nothing left to save. But Jake was a fighter. Slowly, degree by degree, his temperature was climbing back to normal. The cuts on his chest had been cleaned and sealed. There were dozens of them, some shallow and some deep. The hatchling's claws had torn through his skin like he was made of paper. But Jake had not let go. Even when it must have hurt terribly, he had kept holding them close. Lisa looked up as the door to the medical bay opened. She expected Ryan or maybe one of the station crew checking on Jake. Instead, Commander Vrax ducked through the doorway, his massive form barely fitting in the human-sized space. "How is he?" Vrax asked quietly. It was strange hearing a Dracoth warrior speak in such a gentle tone. "Stable," Lisa said. "His temperature is almost back to normal. He should wake up soon." Vrax moved to the bedside and looked down at Jake. The human looked so small and fragile next to the towering Dracoth. Vrax reached out one clawed hand and carefully touched Jake's shoulder, the same gesture he had made in the tunnel. "I have watched the recording from his suit," Vrax said. "Your people keep records of everything, even in emergencies. I saw what he did, how he found my young, how he held them, how he sang to them when they were afraid." Lisa nodded. "Jake was a rescue worker before he came here. He knows how to stay calm in bad situations. He knows how to protect people." "He did more than protect," Vrax said. "He knew that calling for help might collapse the tunnel. He knew that moving them would be dangerous, so he did the only thing he could. He gave them his warmth. He gave them his life." The commander pulled something from a pouch at his belt. It was a small crystal, red as blood and warm to the touch. He placed it on the table, beside Jake's bed. "This is a fire crystal from our homeworld," Vrax explained. "It carries heat from the volcanic core of Ignar Prime. We give these to our young when they are born, to keep them warm until they can generate their own heat. I want this human to have one. He earned it." Lisa picked up the crystal carefully. It was beautiful, glowing softly in the dim light of the medical bay. "He will be honored, Commander." "Thank you." Vrax turned to leave, then stopped. "My mate wants to see him when he wakes. She wants to thank him. And the hatchlings will want to see him too. Especially Ember. She has been crying for the warm one since we took her away." After Vrax left, Lisa sat alone with Jake and the glowing crystal. She thought about what the commander had said. The Dracoth were proud warriors who did not show weakness or emotion easily. But Jake had broken through that armor. He had shown them that humans could be trusted, that humans could be kind even when it cost them everything. The next morning, Jake's eyes finally opened. He blinked slowly, confused by the bright lights and the beeping of the medical equipment. Lisa was there immediately, checking his vitals and offering him water. "Welcome back," she said with a smile. "You gave us quite a scare." Jake's voice was rough when he spoke. "The hatchlings. Are they okay?" "They are fine, thanks to you. You kept them warm until we found you. They are healthy and back with their parents." Jake closed his eyes in relief. Good. That is good. Jake, you almost died. You know that, right? Your body temperature dropped to dangerous levels. You have cuts all over your chest. You could have called for help. The tunnel was unstable, Jake said simply. Calling might have caused a collapse. I could not risk it. Not with them there. Lisa shook her head, but she was smiling. You are either very brave or very stupid. I have not decided which yet. Can I see them? Jake asked. The hatchlings? I will see what I can do. It did not take long. Within an hour, Sarath arrived at the medical bay carrying all 3 hatchlings. Vrax followed behind her. Along with 2 of his warriors, the small medical bay suddenly felt very crowded. The moment the hatchlings saw Jake, they started chirping excitedly. Ember, the smallest one, squirmed in her mother's arms until Sarath let her down. The little hatchling scurried across the floor and climbed up onto Jake's bed, moving with surprising speed for something so small. Ember pressed herself against Jake's side, making happy rumbling sounds. Her tail wrapped around his arm, and she nuzzled his hand with her nose. The other 2 hatchlings wanted down too, and soon all 3 were piled on the bed with Jake, chirping and purring like they had never been separated. Jake laughed. Despite the pain from his injuries, he carefully petted each hatchling, running his hands over their scales. They were so much warmer now than they had been in the cold tunnel. Their scales shone bright red in the light, healthy and strong. Hello, little ones, Jake said softly. I am glad you are okay. Sarath watched her children with tears in her eyes. They have been asking for you. Well, not asking in words, but making the sounds they make when they want something. Ember would not eat until we told her you were alive. Vrax stepped forward. Jake Morrison, you have done my family a great honor. You saved our children when we could not. In Dracoth culture, this creates a bond that cannot be broken. You are now Pack. You are family. Jake looked confused. Commander, I just did what anyone would do. They needed help, and I was there. No, Vrax said firmly. Most would have called for help, even if it risked collapse. Most would have chosen their own safety over 3 alien young they did not know. You chose differently. You chose to protect. That is what Pack does. That is what family does. The old warrior from the tunnel stepped forward. He spoke in the Dracoth language, his voice deep and formal. Vrax, translated, Elder Kor says that you have been marked by the fire. You carried our young against your heart and kept them warm with your life. By the old laws, you are now a fire-bearer. You carry the right to call on any Dracoth for aid, anywhere in the galaxy. Our strength is your strength. Our protection is your protection. Jake did not know what to say. He looked down at the 3 hatchlings curled against him. Ember had fallen asleep, her small body rising and falling with each breath. The other 2 were playing with his fingers, gentle now that they were not desperate for warmth. I do not need anything in return, Jake said. I am just happy they are safe, and that is why you deserve everything, Sarath said. She reached out and touched Jake's hand. Her claws retracted, so she would not hurt him. You expect no reward, but you will have our loyalty forever. You saved our bloodline. We will not forget. News of what happened spread through the station quickly. Other aliens who had fled when the Dracoth pack arrived started coming back. They looked at Jake with new respect, and they looked at the Dracoth with new understanding. The Zenthari, the small, chatty aliens, started telling stories about the human who sang lullabies to dragon babies. The Kryn, usually so quiet, made a point of thanking Jake for showing courage when it mattered most. Even the station commander sent a formal message of commendation. But Jake did not care about any of that. He cared about the 3 small lives pressed against him, warm and safe and alive. He cared about the mother and father who had trusted him with their most precious treasures. He cared about building bridges between species, one small act of kindness at a time. 3 days passed before the doctors cleared Jake to leave the medical bay. He was still weak, and his chest was covered in bandages, but he was healing well. Better than expected, Lisa told him. She said humans were tougher than they looked. Jake was sitting up in bed, eating a meal and trying not to laugh at Ember. The little hatchling had somehow gotten into his food tray and was now covered in mashed potatoes. She looked confused about why the white stuff was sticking to her scales. "You are supposed to eat it, not wear it," Jake told her, wiping potato off her nose with a napkin. Ember chirped happily and climbed up his arm to perch on his shoulder. She had barely left his side since that first reunion. Sereth had tried bringing her back to the Dracoth ship at night, but Ember would cry until they brought her back to the medical bay. Eventually, they just let her stay. She slept curled up on Jake's bed, her tail wrapped around his wrist. The door opened and Vrax entered, followed by Elder Kor and 3 other warriors. They all carried themselves with formal dignity, which meant something important was about to happen. "Jake Morrison," Vrax began. "We have come to make an offer." Jake set down his food tray carefully, trying not to disturb Ember. "What kind of offer, Commander?" "Rule. The Dracoth Council has heard about what happened here. They have heard how you saved our young. They wish to honor you with a position in our pack as a formal guardian." "A guardian?" Jake asked. Elder Kor spoke, his voice rough with age. "Among our people, guardians are those who protect the young of the pack. They are respected above all others, except the elders themselves. You have already proven you have the heart of a guardian. We wish to make it official," Vrax continued. "This would give you rights within Dracoth society. You could visit our homeworld. You could call on our warriors for aid. You would be considered pack, not just in words, but in law." It was a huge honor. Jake understood that much. The Dracoth did not trust easily, and they certainly did not invite outsiders into their families. But something about the offer made Jake uncomfortable. "Commander," Jake said slowly, "I appreciate this more than I can say. But I am not a guardian. I am just a mining supervisor who was in the right place at the right time. What I did was not special. It was just the right thing to do." The Dracoth warriors looked at each other. Vrax tilted his head, studying Jake carefully. "You do not understand your own actions. You risked your life for 3 small creatures you did not know. You gave your warmth until you nearly died from cold. You sang to them when they were afraid. These are not small things. These are the actions of someone with a powerful protective instinct. Any decent person would have done the same," Jake insisted. "No," Sirath said, entering the room behind the warriors. "They would not. We have traveled to many worlds and met many species. Most beings think of themselves first. They calculate risk and reward. They make choices based on what benefits them. You did not calculate. You did not think about reward. You just protected." She moved to the bed and sat down carefully, mindful of her size and weight. "That is rare, Jake Morrison. That is precious. That is why we honor you." Jake looked down at Ember, who was now trying to eat the napkin he had used to clean her. He gently took it away from her and gave her a piece of fruit instead. She chirped happily and settled back on his shoulder to eat. "I cannot leave the station," Jake said. "I have responsibilities here. People depend on me." "We know," Vrax said. "We do not ask you to leave your home. The title of Guardian is yours, whether you live on Ignar Prime or on this asteroid. It means you are pack. It means you are family. It means if you ever need us, we will come." Elder Kor pulled something from his robes. It was a medallion made of dark metal, with a red crystal set in the center. The same kind of fire crystal that Vrax had left by Jake's bed. "This is the mark of a guardian," Kor explained. "It identifies you to any Dracoth you might meet. It tells them you are under our protection. Wear it or keep it hidden, as you choose. But know that it is yours by right of deed and honor." Jake took the medallion carefully. It was warm in his hand, heated by the crystal at its center. The weight of it felt significant, like he was holding more than just metal and stone. "I will treasure this," Jake said. "And I will treasure the friendship we have built. But I hope you understand. I do not want anything in return for what I did. I would do it again in a heartbeat. No payment needed." "That is exactly why you deserve this," Sirath said softly. "You expect nothing, so we give you everything. Over the next 2 days, Preparations were made for the Draketh to leave. Their trade business was concluded, and they needed to return to their home world. But the departure was different from any other Draketh visit in history. Usually, the dragon warriors left as they arrived, proud and distant. This time, they walked through the station and said farewell to the crew. They thanked Ryan for organizing the search. They thanked Lisa for caring for Jake and the hatchlings. They even thanked the kitchen staff for providing warm food during their stay. It was unprecedented. Other aliens on the station watched in amazement as the fierce Draketh warriors showed kindness and courtesy. Word spread quickly through the galactic community. The Draketh, the warriors everyone feared, had found common ground with humans. Things were changing. On the day of departure, Jake stood in the docking bay with Ember on his shoulder. The little hatchling did not want to leave. She had wrapped her tail around his neck and was making sad chirping sounds. "You have to go with your parents, little one," Jake told her gently. "They love you very much, and you need to grow up with your own kind." Ember nuzzled his cheek and made a sound that was almost like a sigh. She understood. But she did not have to like it. Sarath came over, her expression sad. "She has bonded with you. This is rare. Draketh young usually bond only with their birth parents. But Ember sees you as a secondary parent now. You kept her warm. You kept her safe. She will not forget that." "Will I see her again?" Jake asked. "Yes," Vrax said, joining them. "We will return to Frontier 7 for trade. And when Ember is older, when she can travel on her own, she will come to visit you. That is a promise." Jake carefully lifted Ember off his shoulder and handed her to Sarath. The hatchling protested, reaching back toward Jake with her little claws. But she did not try to escape. She knew it was time to go. The other two hatchlings came over to say goodbye as well. They nuzzled Jake's hands and chirped their thanks in the only way they could. Jake petted each one, memorizing the feel of their warm scales and the sound of their happy rumbles. "Grow strong," Jake told them, "and stay out of cold tunnels." The Draketh warriors filed onto their ship. Each one stopped to bow to Jake, a gesture of deep respect. Elder Kor was the last to board. He placed one ancient hand on Jake's shoulder. "You have changed things, young human," the elder said. "Not just for us, but for all species. You have shown that different does not mean enemy. That scales or skin does not matter when it comes to protecting the innocent. Remember that lesson. Teach it to others." Then they were gone. The massive Draketh vessel pulling away from the station and disappearing into the darkness of space. Jake stood at the observation window for a long time, watching the stars. He touched the medallion hanging around his neck, hidden under his shirt. It was warm against his skin, a reminder of 3 small lives he had saved and the family he had earned. Ryan found him there an hour later. "You okay?" "Yeah," Jake said. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how strange life is. A week ago, I was just a mining supervisor. Now I am an honorary member of a Draketh pack. Who would have thought?" Ryan laughed. "Only you, Jake. Only you could accidentally become friends with dragon warriors by babysitting their kids." "I did not babysit them," Jake protested. "I saved them from hypothermia." "Same thing, really. You kept them warm and safe and sang them lullabies. That is definitely babysitting." Jake smiled despite himself. "I guess it is." They stood together in comfortable silence, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3 hatchlings were growing stronger. Somewhere out there, a pack of warriors was telling stories about the human who had the heart of a guardian. And on Frontier 7, a simple mining supervisor went back to work, wearing a fire crystal medallion under his shirt and carrying the knowledge that family could be found in the most unexpected places. Years later, when Ember returned as a young adult, she brought news from across the galaxy. The story of Jake and the hatchlings had spread far and wide. Other species were looking at humans differently now, with less suspicion and more curiosity. Draketh warriors were working alongside human crews on joint missions. Trade agreements were being signed. Alliances were being formed. All because one man had chosen to protect 3 frightened babies in a dark tunnel. Asking for nothing in return, except the knowledge that he had done the right thing. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness created the biggest changes. Sometimes the greatest warriors learned the most important lessons from the gentlest souls. And sometimes, family was not about blood or species or anything except the choice to protect those who could not protect themselves. Jake had made that choice in a cold tunnel on an unremarkable day. And that choice had changed the galaxy.